What is going on, all you profitable stylists and all you future profitable stylists out there? What are the biggest mistakes you're making with your hair extension wear? That's what we're talking about today. There is a couple of things that are done while we're putting in hair extensions on our clients. And we talked about that last week. So now this week, you, the client watching, or you, the stylist, got to start talking to your client about this. What are they doing that is not allowing their hair extension service to last a long time? So that's what we're talking about today.
The biggest mistake you're making with your hair extensions is that
you're wearing while you're wearing. We're talking
while
about
you're wearing. So when I got text this question, I'm sure I asked Alexis, and she might not have got the question exactly right. And I thought immediately, from the stylist point of view or the client wearing them, because they both can affect this, right? So I immediately asked, and I don't know if this is the right timing according to your questions, but I immediately asked Alexis because she wears our hair. And I said, so what are the two biggest problems or mistakes you've had wearing your new extensions over the last few weeks? Just give me the top two. And so it was good to hear from a wearer who hasn't worn extensions for many, many years. It's like all the girls that work for us, not all, but a big percentage at some point are like, can I get hair extensions? Well, of course you can. But I know when they ask, what they're really asking is, do I have to pay for the hair? Do I have to pay for the service? Can I just pull the hair off the shelf? Can I use that returned hair that lady didn't want her like? And they also are asking, like, how do I get it put on my head? Are you going to do it, or one of the stylists, or do I have to make an appointment and pay for it? So you got all that going on. And then, of course, she has dark hair and wore it a couple of times and graduated to where she wears the longest, most maintenance hair extensions you could possibly have. And it's beautiful. She's got 22-inch hair, and a lot of it covers her whole back. And so I know she's got to deal with something. First thing I think of is just washing and styling.
Oof.
Wash it, dry, and style. You know, it's covering every bit of her back down to about her belt. And so to me, the first thing I think is, it's hard for a stylist to do it in a shampoo bowl. It's got to be easier in the shower than a shampoo bowl, because that bowl is too little for all that hair, you know? And so then she said her biggest mistakes was not brushing and detangling often enough. And she's slept once with wet hair. And she knows, because she's telling people for us every week, you know, that they can't do that. When people call and complain they're having a problem, what are you telling your clients? What are your clients doing? Not sleeping with wet hair. Maybe number one. It came to my mind first, but honestly, I've never worn hair extensions. So I wasn't sure that would be the top one. I thought, you know what? Let me see if there's something I hadn't thought about, something a brand new, and I say brand new for a year or so now, how a brand new wearer, what does she experience with this couple of different lengths, couple of different techniques from wefts and strands. And it was interesting to me that it was in two situations. It was wet hair. One, going to sleep with wet hair, and one, not detangling soon enough after swimming. So from wet to dry was her biggest challenges, and then just not detangling in the mornings. So that would be from a client perspective in my eyes.
I see it because I do clients. I'm still behind the chair. I do hair extensions on clients. And then because of our brand, I do technical support for hairstylists. So I'm helping them talk about problems that they're having with their clients. 9 out of 10 times, 90% of the time, it's brushing. The client is not brushing their hair. I harp about this all the time. You cannot detangle hair enough. If your hair is past your collarbone, you must own a brush. If your hair, or not your collarbone, excuse me, top of your shoulders. The second your hair goes past the top of your shoulders, it's touching your body, it's splitting, breaking apart, it's causing friction, it's rubbing against your clothes, and that's all going to cause tangling. And if you do not detangle it, it is going to snowball effect and get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Every problem, majority of the time, comes back to they didn't brush their hair enough. So yeah, that's the biggest mistake of all time. We got more to go over, but far and by far the biggest number one mistake is brush your hair, closely followed by this damn wet hair to air drying thing. It drives me nuts. It drives me. We probably have 20 shorts. You could probably make a montage of every time I go off about letting wet hair air dry. I hate it. I can't stand
and then you're
it.
talking about brushing. And I think one of the key words you just said was enough, because many people brush lightly over the top and never get deep enough. And the challenge that I don't even think I got in the first few years of doing hair is the difference in hair on the sides of the head compared to the back of the head.
Oh, good point.
Because of the freaking ears. There's so little hair from top to bottom here, right? And if you part over here, there's even less. So somebody could brush their hair really well on this side, and they think they got it detangled. Maybe that took 5-10 strokes. So they kind of do the same thing here and the same thing back there. But on the back of the head, there's so much more hair. So it's going to take so much more brushing. The side they part too is going to be more brushing. A little less brushing, a lot more brushing, a whole lot more brushing. But you may need to part it, pick it up, and do it in 3 or 4 sections and get that underneath brushed. Even if you flipped over, which I would never really recommend pulling hair up to brush. But goodness, if you could just lay to the side and get that underneath, and that underneath here would be a start, but you're still not going to get the center in the middle of the back. So you've got to use a brush or a tool that digs a little deeper, but doesn't pull the extensions out. And that's why we sell extension brushes and not a loop brush necessarily for the newer style of extensions. You need more like a boar bristle brush that we sell. And other than that, I think sectioning is the most important. Okay, so let's say you don't have a brush. I would say the next best, not actually designed for extensions, but works pretty well, would be these wet brushes. Almost any boar bristle brush would be better, but a wet brush is better. But an extension brush generally has that longer, firm bristle and the shorter, softer bristle. So it kind of digs a little deeper and is designed to, but it's still not deep enough that brushing straight over the top is going to be enough. You need to part it and get in those deep sections underneath here. Or hairdressers, charge that girl more for her maintenance. If she didn't brush it, if she didn't put the work in and you have to, penalty. Somebody's got to pay for it. And you're either paying for it with time and not charging them. The client has to do it with their time, or you have to do it with your time. They either do it so they can save money, or they don't do it and pay us to do it. That's my opinion.
It's true. It's a lot of stylists a lot of clients get nervous to go directly to the attachment point areas because they think they're going to put too much tension and they're going to pull it out. And it leads to one of two things. They're either just brushing the midshaft and the bottoms and the ends, or they just don't touch it at all because they're nervous, So the boar bristle, the 2-tier brush, the boar bristle with the extended pins is the perfect brush for that. The wet style brushes, those thinner pinned, but they also got to be 2-tiered. Don't get a wet brush that just has that concave in it. You need one that's got the 2 tiers in it, because the longer bristles need to separate the hair, but then the shorter bristles got to have enough tension to grab and pull off any buildup or any buildup or any debris that's up in the hair like that too, right? The other thing is if you're wearing strands, whether they're keratin bonds, whether they're O-tips, whether they're I-tips, whether they're K-tips, whatever they are, if you don't have a brush and you're outside, you're out and about, and you don't got a brush, you got fingers, jazz hands, go jazz hands through your hair, use your hands to detangle it. And so this way you can separate your hair with your fingers. And then if you have a brush, follow through with a brush afterwards too. That's actually the best, because you're trying to rip through tangles with a brush. You're gonna tear apart your hair. If you can grab and support, like if you have length, if you can grab and support the hair, start from the bottom and slowly work your way up, and grab it from the top and work your way further up, and you're brushing all the way through, all the way through, all the way through. That is the ultimate way to that is the best proper ultimate way to detangle your hair. Then you get a high five from me. I don't go on a rant.
Unless they air dry. What's your first question? Do you have a list?
Before we start harping on clients, you stylists out there.
We already did. We already started.
Well, before we continue, let's give them a break. Round one.
Right.
Let them go to their corner and get a water break real quick. You stylists out there, are you setting up your clients for success, or are you setting them up for failure?
Some of them don't even know.
They have no idea. Well, so what do I mean? If you're doing keratin bonds, if you're doing K-tips, do you leave the bond as big as possible and as long as possible, or you cut them down and try to make them small, or try to make them tiny, or try to make them micro? Does it matter? Does one wear longer than the other? Does one not tangle more than the other?
Oh, you asking me?
I'm throwing it in your court. Well, I'm definitely opinionated. I go off on this stuff.
Well, we talked about it a few weeks ago, right? The size of the
We
bond.
did talk about it. Yeah.
What it means. I mean, there's a lot there. I think people should maybe we should even link that video, because we go into great detail about cutting that bond down, the timing, how much you heat the bond up, how fast you get to it when you roll it. It's not as much about how big it is. It's about how well you put it in. I mean, you can go from too big of a bond that you would think bigger might be better and better support. Let's forget about how ugly and visible and what it would feel like. You might think a bigger bond would grab onto more hair and stay in better. And it possibly could if you had a gigantic tool that would heat the whole thing at one time. Unfortunately, even the cheap tools that heat these bonds up aren't large. So you're going to have to tap, and you're going to have to heat up multiple locations on the same bond to get that whole thing hot enough to do anything with. Then your fingers are only this big and the bond is bigger. And so then you'd have to double roll. So then you couldn't even support the hair. So everything's going to slide and be misaligned. So the bond being too big causes too many problems. And we've done it all these ways. It's why we know. We're not just guessing. We're not just saying what the manufacturer wants us to say. We've done this. I've cut the bond down smaller to fit into the tool really well. One heating, one quick hard roll, even if I got to kind of pivot to pinch it off at the top, or folding with just one set of fingers, not gigantic fingers. And then the timing of putting the tool down, quickly getting back because heat starts cooling and it starts to cool down. The plier, the plier mechanical pressure of pushing the keratin all the way through. So many things are going on here that a smaller bond works in most cases. But you can see in this other video where I talk about where I went too short and everything fell out. So you can cut the bond too small and then it's no good. So I say the size of the tool. There's too big is a problem, too small is a problem. Yeah. It's got to be just right.
Just right. And you got to have enough hair to support that. I talk about that in class and I show that off all the time, especially with keratin bonds. And then in particular, and then we're linking in the description that video that you were just talking about, so you can see in real time the examples what we mean. The other thing is with the beads. I also show with the onstage hair extensions that the O-tip system in particular, it's separated from the hair and the bead. They're two separate parts. They're not combined. Therefore, those beads from the onstage brand can be smaller, which then is less material in the hair. And I am of the personal opinion, the less material that's in the hair, the less chances there are for crazy things to happen when crazy things happen. In my opinion, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when something insane is going to happen to your client who is wearing hair extensions. It's Murphy's Law times a billion. I don't even know, man. It's
a friend of mine, actually the guy that fixes our computers, he just recently, I don't know, some fluke recently decided to grow his hair out. Last few years, he had short hair for many years. All of a sudden, he's got hair down to here as an older man, close to his, I think he's 70 actually. And I was like, what? Why are you growing your hair out? He goes, I don't know, just to do something different, just fun. But he said, but it gets caught in a lot of things. And so it's interesting, a new long hair wearer, he's experiencing these new problems. Hair can catch on things. It can close it in a car door. There's so many things that can damage at the root if you're not careful. So we're talking about the right things, the wrong things, how to take care. Protecting your hair, when you go from short to very long hair, new challenges come up. Detangling is a big one. Sleeping with wet hair is a big one. But it's all these things that you're just larger than yourself now. When you turn a corner and hair flows out, your hair is, I love these shorts on YouTube where these girls, it's on purpose, but they act like they don't notice people next to them, and they do something like a hair flip and pop somebody in the face next to them, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Most of these are jokes for our reactions to get us to watch the videos, but it's so true. I've got popped in the face by my own wife's hair a couple of times. I'm like,
yeah, I've been there.
Yeah. Yep. And it's like, hey, could you be aware of your surroundings, please?
We just got the comment, the extensions got caught in the seatbelt. You just stole my thunder there, because I had a client who, on her seatbelt, she bedazzled her seatbelt, and she put like a whole bunch of tchotchke stuff on it because it's
yeah,
it's pretty. So she comes in and she's complaining. It's like, specifically right here, her hair keeps breaking. And I'm going, it makes no sense. It just makes no sense. And then the one night, she was the last appointment. So we were talking after she got done with her appointment while I was cleaning up and sanitizing. We left. She gets in her car. I'm getting in my car. I look over at her, and the reason why it caught my attention, because, it's night and the lights were like sparkling off the thing. I'm like, what the hell is going on inside there? And she pulls this thing, and it's like little glitter everywhere, bling, bling, bling. I'm like, go knock on on her window. I go, how much hair? I can see the strands of hair that she pulled out, and they're still sticking out in there because I caught.
Right.
I'm like, come on, man. You're killing me. So
and she doesn't even notice it. Right. And so
Hello Kitty, her little clippy thing that she had on her seatbelt was ripping her hair off. So it's another reason why it's the devil.
Sometimes you just have to be aware of what's going on. And then we are talking about brushing and detangling. I often ask the client to brush and detangle in front of me so I can see what kind of damage they're doing there, because that could be the problem too. They're doing the right thing the wrong way. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just too aggressive in the brushing can be bad. I correct my own hairdresser sometimes. Remember, I told you about Night at the Roxbury. If I see a client doing this in the salon, I know some stylist is standing behind them going, brushing too fast and too hard, or on the side of the head. And I'm like, what is going on with that client over there? Do they have ear pods in? Are they dancing? What is going on? And it's a hairdresser. Just raking through that hair, jerking on them. And if a head is moving, it's too much. Unfortunately, with a client, they're usually going to support their own head. They know it's coming. So they're just
yeah, sure, right.
And their head's not moving. But if I watch them do it, ask them, why don't you brush your tangles out here? Let me just kind of see how you take care of your hair at home. Big clue into what's going on when they're not with you. That's about as close as you can get. I often joked around about, I need you to wear a head camera for the next couple of days. I need to see everything you do, because I don't think it's me, ma'am. I've got a lot of successful clients, and something's happening with you. Because they're blaming me, of course, at the time. Yeah, sure. And I'm like, I wish I could see everything you're doing in your life. I like you with the seatbelt. You try to imagine that they're living a normal life, and it might be the sleeping, the showering, the not brushing, but often it's something unique, like bedazzling, something, and maybe they're brushing too hard. Maybe you never know. I mean, you never know what it is, and they won't always be honest, or they don't actually know what it is themselves because they just
They don't even realize sometimes they're doing it. It's
right.
crazy. It's crazy. So now let's go back to the clients. You go home, you've got your extensions, you're all happy, everything's great, right? And now the next day you got to, or a couple days later, whatever, you got to wash your hair. So you get in the shower. Now, yeah, don't be doing this thing and trying to give yourself a nice massage and a scalp spa and stuff like that when you have hair extensions in your head, because that's going to be a hot freaking mess. All right. The other thing is, I've seen girls do this in the shower, which is I didn't understand it at first, but then I've come to learn to understand it.
You watching girls in the shower?
Yeah, I guess that didn't come out right, did it?
No. I mean, maybe, but I'm just wondering.
Talking about exes. Okay.
Go ahead. Girls in the shower, and what are they doing wrong?
Yeah, they totally didn't come out right. But like I've seen, all right, I've seen my exes do it, which means there is enough girls doing it. The hair, you've got a lot of hair, like you just said, Alexis, right? She's got a lot of hair filled up. It gets heavy when it's wet. It gets really, really heavy. Right. So I've seen girls bend forward, and they're doing that, kind of like what you were mentioning earlier about brushing the hair, detangling it,
pushing the water out of their hair.
They're pushing all the water out of their hair, and they're just trying to do this, and they're bent forward trying to wash their hair out rather than leaning their head back.
First thing I'm seeing is the hair wants to hang down. That's how it's going to be the strongest. And so it's like pulling hair up on the back of your head or everywhere. It's not the strongest. It's going to be a little more painful, more susceptible to coming out of your head. So that's the start of wrong, with extra weight in your hair. And then if you're some people are going to wring it out, even if it's off to the side, and that squeezing might be okay, but squeezing and pulling or twisting against your scalp, more tension, not needed. But that's just my guess, is you might have more.
Yeah, you got to understand, when your hair is wet, it's going to stretch 1.5 to almost twice its length. The elasticity is out of control. And if you've got a hair extension attached, I don't care what type of hair extension you're using, it is attached to said hair. So when you go to pull, it's not going to give in that spot. That's a lot of tension. That's a lot of stress. It's going to cause... If it doesn't cause breakage, you're definitely tearing apart and weakening the cuticle in that area.
Let's go over that a little bit. You said it like a pro, because you know. I'm not trying to be a pro. No, you said it like a professional because you know this is a fact. But let's go over that a little bit with people in a general. I don't even think hairdressers realize. I mean, they hear it in school, and many of them have heard it and maybe believe it or not. But we've tested it. I mean, we used to have these little blocks that had these little pins on there that you could wrap hair around on both sides, tighten a nut, and then stretch the hair until it broke.
Bricks, yeah.
Yeah, and it had these numbers on there, and we would see when the hair broke. We would use it to kind of see the tensile strength of a person's hair compared to what was said to be normal. But everybody's hair broke at a different, and you're pulling one hair out of a person's head. Yes, that's damaged, a little bit of pain. It's one hair for the sacrificed for the purposes of science and testing. But what was fascinating to me is I had always heard that hair stretched more when it was wet. So we tested it, and it is actually a safety mechanism that our hair has, because when it's wet, it's heavier and more susceptible to damage. So thank goodness it stretches. But I think it's fascinating. You said it and you glazed over it. And I just think that more of the general public that watches our videos might not realize this. But hair, if it's dry, like breaks at one point, but when wet, stretches so much further, depending on how healthy it is. It's crazy how much more it stretches when it's wet. So when hair's wet, sure, it stretches more. That is protection. But the problem I think Eddie's trying to hone in on is where it's connected to the head. You've only grown out somewhere around here. So you've only got this much hair to stretch. So it's not going to stretch enough to give. When hair is connected to your head and it's long and you're brushing, you can be a little rougher on it because all of that hair is stretching and giving you a little more protection against breaking before it gets broke. I mean, a little more stretch before it gets broken from detangling. But extensions are hanging from a little bit near the scalp. So not only when you're brushing are you getting that protection in the human hair over synthetic, that's fine, but it's only connected this far away from your scalp. So this bit it can't stretch enough to.
You want a visual?
Wait, do you have a visual? It can't stretch enough. What is this? A rubber band? Go
Get
for
a rubber band. If you have a rubber band, you can stretch it both ways.
Right.
And that's your hair. Normally, with proper elasticity and proper tension and everything else. Okay, nice healthy hair stretches both ways. If you attach hair extensions to it, pinch off the rubber band in half and try to pull to one side and see how far you can go. You can't go as far as you can when it's by itself. And if you keep doing this and doing this and doing this, it's going to keep thinning out. And eventually.
You broke it?
I did on purpose. But that's what's happening. It can only stretch so much before it snaps because you've taken half the elasticity away. You've pinched it off with the bond or the attachment area, so it can only go so far. It's a great visual to do that in classes. Now I need another rubber band, but worth it. Totally worth it for what we're talking about here. So when you get in the shower, I mean, it matters overall, but you should be using warm water. You shouldn't be using steaming hot water, just in general anyways. But especially if you're wearing keratin bonds or K-tips, they are heat sensitive. So you really, really don't want to have hot water. But you should tilt your head back and follow your natural growth, natural fall. Wash your hair that way and let the water run down your back, okay? That's the best way to wash it, condition it when you're conditioning it. Oh, and just use the pads of your fingers and just massage gently over the attachment areas. And then when you're putting conditioner, don't put it at the attachment areas. Put it underneath, mid-shaft to ends, rinse it out real nice, and then you're good. When you're using products, okay, if you're using volumizing products, you have to understand a volumizing product is trying to lift or expand or plump, swell, whatever the word you want to use. It's trying to take your hair and make it bigger. That's what a volumizing product is trying to do. But if you've got hair extensions attached to it, it can't grow in that spot. So it's going to end up like an hour shape glass with a pinch point in the middle. That's where the attachment is. It's going to put undue stress. It's going to cause breakage or tears in the cuticle. And then when it stretches some more, it's going to snap, going back to the rubber band idea. So be mindful of the products that you're putting in your hair. Also, just because leave-in conditioners, keratin sprays, strengthening oils and all that stuff, just because it's good doesn't mean you should be dousing. You shouldn't be taking a bath in this stuff either. Your hair is like a cup. You can only fill so much liquid moisture in there before it overflows. So it can only hold so much at any given time. Moisture comes in every single form. It's not only water. Product counts as moisture as well. Okay. Keratin protein, leave-ins, UV protectant. If you accidentally are getting makeup in your hair, if you're putting foundation, moisturizer, mask, whatever the makeup stuff is called. But if that's going in your hair, that's filling up your hair shaft as well too. So be mindful not to overdose your hair. The best analogy example I give is you get a headache, you pop a couple of Tylenol, it's good for you. But if you're taking 6, 7 of them, that's a bad day, even though they're supposed to be good for you.
Right.
So be mindful of products. Be mindful of washing. That's the first topic of things simple mistakes. And then when you wrap your hair in a towel, like a lot of women tend to wrap their hair in a towel or pull it up in a turban and keep it up on their head. Then they walk around, they put their makeup on, they get dressed, they do whatever they do, and then they bring the towel down. It's an opportunity for them to let their hair kind of dry a little bit while absorbing the moisture out of their hair. And I think that's a wonderful idea. It's fantastic. What you don't want to do is tilt your head over and just tear the towel off, because I see that happen. That's a bad day. If you spent the time to nicely wrap it up, spend the time to nicely undo it. Don't just tilt your head over and pull. Same thing with scrunchies, same thing with hair bands, hair ties, and anything else. You pull your hair back and then you tie it off real nice and you get it nice and secure. Don't just go in and grab it and just pull it out. You're tearing your hair apart. And especially if you got your hair extensions in there, that's a bad day. That's definitely a bad day. So that's the couple of things to talk about with home care. We went over the brushing, so that's a thing that happens. Now, when it comes to lifestyle, if you're active, that's awesome, but you got to be mindful. If you're swimming, you got to understand chlorine is a chemical that's common in pools. It's designed to cleanse the hair or cleanse the water, and make it safe to go swimming in there, right? But it's going to dry your hair out. It's going to mess you up. So you got to rinse that out as best as you can. You could try to put some conditioner in your hair before you go in the water, or some leave-in before you go in the water. A lot of people don't think about that, or, you're having fun, so you miss it. Not a problem. When you get out of the pool, you're probably not thinking about the first thing you should do is brush your hair out and detangle it. You're probably letting your hair air dry because you're at the beach, you're having fun, or you're at somebody's house, you're having fun. But when you get home, you got to try to clarify that out. Another thing that you should do, if you are active, if you like going on hikes, walking outside, going for a run, whatever it is, totally fine, all for it. Problem is, you got to understand that we sweat because you're doing, extraneous activity. The sweat has salts in it. Okay. It's going to dry out your hair, which is in turn going to dry out the extensions. Not so much for the attachment area, but for the ends themselves. So you want to make sure that you're trying to cleanse that off whenever you can. And then for you workout fiends, a lot of women like to go to hot yoga, which is fine. But you got to understand, those rooms, they get about 90 to 100 degrees. Some of them, like the really hot ones, I've heard get like 110 degrees. That's wild. It's really, really insane. Good on you that you do it. But again, that's a lot of heat for an extended period of time. It's the equivalent of sitting in a sauna. You gotta take care of your hair. Okay, you got to take care of your body too, but you got to take care of your hair. Last thing I'll say about sweating and friction and the brushing and the tangling and all of that stuff is the sleeping. When you go to sleep at night, you don't realize how much you toss and turn. So if you're tossing and turning a lot, you should be getting a silk or a satin pillowcase, or you should be putting your hair up in a silk wrap or satin wrap. Now, if some of you think, that's not for you, you don't want to do that, I understand, that's fine. Get your hair in a braid, a soft braid, not a tight one. Get your hair in a soft, low ponytail, not a tight one. I know some women like to put their hair up in a bun because they don't want to have the ponytail, so the back of their neck, like the ponytail doesn't get caught in the back of their neck and it doesn't squish against the pillow. If you're going to put it up in a bun, you have to be really mindful and understand that you're pulling your hair up against its natural fall. Your hair grows down. It doesn't grow up. So if you're pulling it up, we have attached your hair to be facing down too. You have to be really gentle when you pull it up And absolutely do not make it tight. Leave it as a soft bun. Otherwise, get some microfiber pillowcase. And as so long as you can get 1,800 to 2,000 thread count or higher, the higher the thread count, the better. But the prices have become so reasonable on those things nowadays. You could get a 2,000 thread count pillowcase for 20, 30 bucks. Go online, go to your local box store, go to the grocery, wherever you go. It's really, really not expensive to get a high thread count regular pillowcase. Reason why I'm saying microfiber and not cotton or polyester is because microfiber does not absorb moisture from sweating. It doesn't cause you to overheat as much as some of the other materials. They are comfortable, they feel great, but when you have hair extensions, it's going to cause tangling and matting. That's going to be a bad day. So things like that to consider. As far as maintenance goes, you should, once you get hair extensions, you should be coming back to your stylist every 6 to 8 weeks. Or you should be coming back every 4 to 6 weeks if you get color done. You got to get yourself on a routine. This is not a negotiation like this. You got to get yourself on a routine. You got to be getting your hair cut regularly. You got to be getting your color done regularly. You got to be coming in for revisits and checkups regularly as well too for your hair extensions. One of the things we talk about often on here, and especially you talk about in class, when you attach whatever system, bond, tape, tips, beads, O-tips, whatever you're doing, wefts, strands, you're attaching it to a bunch of hair, okay? But shedding occurs. So you can't stop natural shedding, and you cannot dictate where that natural shedding comes from. Sometimes it's going to come from the areas that are not attached to the hair extensions, and sometimes your hair is going to shed from the bunch that we used to attach the extension to. But it's stuck in the attachment area. It's got nowhere to go, so it's just kind of sitting there hanging out, clawing out, right? Those loose hairs are going to be grabbing other hairs next to them, and it's going to start getting everything caught up together. If you're coming in regularly for checkups, as the client, tell your stylist, or as the stylist watching this, understand, if you put in your placement patterns clean, meaning some kind of method to it, and you're not just scattering it in there just because you're going by feel, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, except for in this instance, it's going to make your life more difficult, okay? But if you're putting them in some kind of placement pattern with a purpose, you can easily resection those parts out, see the attachment areas. And if you see little hairs sticking out, the loose hairs that shed it out, take your shears and snip them off. Snip off those ends so everything is nice and collected back in the attachment area. Whether it's the tape adhesive, whether it's the keratin, whether it's the bead, I don't care which method you're using. So cleaning up, getting rid of any of those loose hairs is huge, can make a huge difference, especially because we don't think about it in the beginning, because when you attach hair extensions, they're close to the head. Some of the biggest mistakes that happen during wear is we worry too much about getting close to the head. But keratin bonds, K-tips, they're in there for months, 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5, 6 months. So where it started here is now hanging down here. You've got a good solid 2, 3, 4 inches of outgrowth. That's respectable. So if you went too high on your placement, then it's going to be sticking out of the rest of the hair. That's not going to look good. And then the client's constantly going to be brushing it and restyling it and overstyling it, which is going to cause extra tension and breakage. If you're wearing beaded or tape and, 6 weeks later, Yeah, that's starting to get heavy on the hair too. So the client's doing extra pulling and extra styling and over styling in those cases as well too. Again, getting on a routine is very, very, very important. Move ups and fresh installs when the client is coming back in. There are some types of hair extension systems, for example, like the O-tips from the onstage hair extensions, where it gives you the opportunity to be able to remove all of the beads, take the weft out, reload it really quick, put the weft back in nice and fresh. There are unfortunately some systems out there that are not as versatile. And so it's either a lot of struggle, it's a lot of work, or it's a lot of time to have to remove the entire hair extensions and then put them back in fresh again. So a lot of stylists will train their clients that the first time we're going to install it, and then every couple of weeks you're going to come back and we're just going to shift it right back up. And that's going to be your move up, what's commonly referred to as a move up. You got to be mindful when you're doing those move up services, because if the hair has shedded too much, you started off attaching it to a full section of hair. But if some of that hair has shedded and now you're moving it up and then some of that hair sheds, it's hanging on by a hair or two. It's going to cause breakage. That's a bad day. So you got to be very, very mindful about move ups. All right. And when you're removing, when you're taking them out, if you're doing keratin bonds, kind of like what Bernard and I were talking about earlier, if you're using longer, bigger, thicker, fatter bonds, okay, fine. But you got to be mindful. That's going to be more breaking down, more work, mechanical beading to break that contact from the cuticle to remove that hair extension. So you got to be really meticulous. You got to be really, really focused. You got to be really careful when you're removing hair extensions. Even the beaded ones too. Yeah, you're popping the bead open. Okay, fine. But you got to be, don't just be holding it out or just holding it up in the air and just popping the bead open. You got to follow natural fall. You still got to be mindful of how that hair is laying. And you got to be, careful how you're reopening that bead to get that out. So the removal process is insane sometimes. A lot of breakage happens during that time that we don't realize. All right. So that, to recap, don't wash your hair, or don't wash your hair and go let it air dry. Blow dry it nicely, get it dry. Don't just leave it be and don't touch it. Brush your hair, detangle it. It's super important. Be mindful of where the extensions are and how you are styling your hair, how you are pulling it back, how you are being active in your community, in your family, in your personal life, with your friends, going out, having fun. Just be aware that you are doubling up the amount of hair that's on your head. So you have to take double the care, that extra care for it as well too. And the hair extensions is attached. So it doesn't know that if you're moving this way, it should be moving that way with you. If it gets caught in something, it ain't going anywhere. So don't get your hair yanked really hard, all right? I'd love to know, kind of like what Bernard was talking about earlier, some of the mistakes he was asking to Alexis, who hasn't worn extensions in a while and now she's wearing them again, and she's got the longer, thicker hair. What are some of the mistakes she's ran into? I'd love to hear from all of you. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you learned? You were this day old when you found out you should not have done this. It'd be fun to hear about, all right? Drop them in the comments. Let us know. Thank you all for watching. Stay profitable. We'll catch you next week.